The hostess, Priya, 23, new hire, looked up. The hostess didn't even look up from her podium when he walked in. That was the first thing Maya noticed. She was 3 tables away, balancing a tray of water glasses, when the man stepped through the brass doors of Aldaine, the kind of restaurant where the menu had no prices and the lighting was designed to make everyone look wealthy. Everyone except him. He wore a gray fleece jacket with a fraying zipper, cargo pants with a faded stain on the left knee, and boots that had been resoled at least twice. He was in his late 50s, heavy set, with a beard that wasn't quite groomed and wasn't quite homeless, somewhere in between. He carried a canvas tote bag over one shoulder and smelled faintly of motor oil and Irish Spring soap. He asked for a table for one. Anne took in the jacket, the boots, the bag. Her smile did something complicated. "Do you have a reservation?" she asked, though she was already looking back at her screen. "I don't," the man said. "We're fully booked tonight." Maya looked at the dining room. 12 empty tables. She set down her tray. He was guided, if you could call it that, to the worst table in the house. A two-top beside the kitchen pass-through, where the noise was a wall, and the smell of grease replaced the restaurant's signature cedar and citrus air. The table the staff called the penalty box. Maya watched him sit without complaint. He opened the menu and studied it the way people study things they've already made peace with, not surprised by the prices, not performing for anyone. She walked over before her section manager could stop her. "I'm Maya," she said. "I'll be taking care of you tonight." He looked up. His eyes were brown and very still. "Thank you, Maya," he said. "I'll have the ribeye, the 45-day dry-aged one. The most expensive item on the menu, $340. "Of course," she said. "How would you like it cooked?" "Medium rare, and a glass of tap water. No ice." She wrote it down. Behind her, she could feel the look Dominic was drilling into the back of her skull. Dominic Hale had been floor manager at Aldaine for 6 years, and for the last 4 of them he had been holding the restaurant together with wire and willpower. Corporate had raised revenue targets twice in 18 months. The head chef had quit in March. The refrigeration unit in the walk-in had been flagging temperature alerts since February, and Dominic had been managing that problem quietly because a formal report would trigger a closure review, and he could not afford a closure review. Not now. Not with the quarterly numbers where they were. He was not a bad man, exactly. He was a man who had made a series of small compromises over a long time, and each one had made the next one easier to justify. He was charming to the guests who arrived in black cars and tight with the staff who arrived by train. He knew which side of that equation mattered for his career. He had stopped examining that knowledge a while ago. He appeared at Maya's elbow the moment she reached the server station. "That table doesn't get the ribeye," he said. He ordered it. "He's a walk-in. He's not our demographic. Get him the prix fix and move him out in 40 minutes. He has money for the ribeye, Dominic. This isn't a debate." He smiled thin, final, and turned away. Maya stood still. Her chest felt tight. She had $2,400 left on a medical bill for her mother's MRI. Not a rounded metaphorical number, $2,400 exactly, because she had checked the patient portal that morning on her phone while she was still on the train. The kind of bill that didn't go away. The kind that had kept her at Aldaine for 3 years despite everything. She typed in the prefix. Then she deleted it. She typed in the ribeye. She stood there, finger hovering, and thought about the man at the penalty box table, and the 12 empty seats, and the look on Priya's face when she decided he wasn't worth a real answer. She hit confirm. While she waited on the ribeye, she brought him bread and water, and slowed down enough to actually look at him. The canvas tote bag was tucked under his chair. The top flap had fallen open slightly. She could see the corner of a manila folder, and below it, the edge of a phone, lying flat and dark against the canvas. She didn't know what to make of it. She filed it away and went back to her other tables. It was Carlos who overheard the call. Carlos Mendez, 34, had been at Aldaine for 2 years on a work visa that expired in 7 months. His wife was 6 months pregnant. He had an immigration lawyer he was paying in installments, and a very clear understanding of what happened to people like him when they made trouble in places like this. He was at the sink when Dominic came into the back and made the call. Dominic turned toward the wall, voice low, one hand cupped around his mouth. But the kitchen was small, And Carlos had learned to hear everything without appearing to listen. The health inspection report, the one with the refrigeration dates, backdate it to the 14th, not the 21st. I need it clean before Thursday. Yes, I'll transfer the rest tonight. Carlos set down the pot he was holding. He stood there, water running over his hands, not moving. He thought about his wife. He thought about his lawyer. He thought about the last 2 years of early mornings and late nights and the particular discipline of keeping his head down in a country that had not yet decided whether to keep him. He said nothing, but his hands were shaking when he went back to work. The ribeye came out perfect. Maya set it down herself, watched the man's face when he looked at the plate. Something moved there. Not hunger, not performance. Something older than both. "This is excellent," he said after the first bite. "Compliments to the kitchen." "I'll tell them." She almost left. Instead, "Is everything okay with the table? I know the location." "It's fine," he said. Then, "Why did you bring me this?" "Because you ordered it." He looked at her steadily. "Your manager told you not to." It wasn't a question. "Enjoy your meal," she said. She was halfway back to the server station when Dominic stepped in front of her like a door closing. "I saw the ticket." His voice was quiet. That was always worse than loud. He ordered the ribeye. "I told you the prefix." "We don't have a policy." "You're done for the night." Still quiet. "Apron at the stand." "Final check Friday." She looked at him. For just a moment, a half second, something she would think about later. Something moved across his face. Not regret, exactly. More like the recognition of a line he was crossing and couldn't stop himself from crossing. Then it was gone. The dining room was not empty. 9 tables occupied. Guests with wine glasses halfway raised. 2 servers pretending to fold napkins. Priya at the podium, staring at a fixed point on the floor. Nobody said a word. Maya felt the heat rise to her face. She felt the $2,400 sitting on her chest like a stone. She reached up and unpinned her apron. "For the record," she said, and her voice only shook a little, "the guest at table 2 ordered what he was entitled to order, and I served him what he ordered. That's my job." She set the apron on the stand. She looked once at the room. 9 tables. She didn't blame any of them. She understood, with a clarity that surprised her, exactly why no one moved. Everyone in that room had something to lose. That was not a moral failure. That was just the truth of how most people lived. A couple near the window quietly flagged their server for the check. They didn't make a scene. They just wanted to leave. She understood that too. From across the room, someone cleared his throat. The man in the gray fleece jacket had turned in his chair. "Excuse me," he said, not loud, but the room was holding its breath and everyone heard. Dominic turned, smile already assembled. "Sir, I apologize for—" "What is your policy for walk-in guests?" "We accommodate when possible." "You seated me at the worst table in the restaurant. You instructed your server to replace my order without my knowledge. And approximately 40 minutes ago, you made a call in the kitchen instructing someone to falsify a health inspection record." The room went very still. Dominic's smile didn't fall, it froze. "I don't know what you think you heard, but—" From the kitchen doorway, Carlos Mendez stepped forward. He had not planned to. He had told himself 3 times in the last hour that he would not. But he had watched Maya set her apron on the stand, and he had thought about his wife, and something in him had shifted past the place where calculation was possible. "I heard it," Carlos said. His voice was quiet and absolutely clear. "All of it. I'll say so in writing." Dominic looked at him. Something in his face cracked. The man at table 2 reached into his canvas tote and placed a manila folder on the table. "My name is Gerald Achebe," he said, standing. "I own 4 restaurant groups, including the hospitality group that acquired Aldaine 8 months ago." He looked at Dominic. "Which makes me your employer's employer." He opened the folder. Internal audit documents, property records, his own name on the acquisition paperwork, printed and dated. Dominic said it was out of context, then said he'd been under pressure and the inspector had approached him first. Then, quietly, almost to himself, said he hadn't meant for it to go this far. No one in the room moved toward him. He was escorted out by the general manager, who arrived 14 minutes later. Maya was outside on the service steps, coat on, when Gerald found her. He sat down beside her without asking. 2 people on a concrete stair, the city filling the silence between them. "I want to offer you a position," he said. Floor manager at our new location opening in the spring. Salary benefits and equity share. Maya was quiet for a moment. What about Carlos? Gerald paused, a beat too long. I'll make sure he's taken care of. That's not specific enough, she said. He looked at her. He took a real risk tonight, she said. He has a visa situation, a baby coming, whatever's in your power hours, documentation support, a lawyer if you have one on retainer. I want that to be part of whatever happens next. Gerald was quiet for a moment. You're right, he said. I should have led with that. She nodded. 22 years ago, he said, a restaurant asked me to leave. Different city, different jacket, same look. He paused. I didn't become who I am now immediately after that. It took me a long time, and I made my own version of Dominic's choices along the way before I stopped. He said it without drama, just a fact he had learned to carry. I do these visits because I want to see who a room really is when it thinks no one important is watching. Maya looked out at the street. I'll think about the offer, she said. Of course, he said. He left her there on the steps. She went home that night and sat at her kitchen table and opened the patient portal on her laptop. $2,400. She made a $200 payment, all she could spare, and closed the tab. She updated her resume. She didn't know if Gerald's offer was real or how long it would take to materialize or whether any of it would come through the way it had sounded on cold concrete steps outside a restaurant that had just fired her. She had been offered things before that arrived differently than promised. She made tea. She went to bed. 3 days later, Gerald's office called. The offer was what he'd said it was. Carlos had been contacted separately. The legal support was already arranged, though his visa situation remained uncertain. The lawyer was working on it, but these things took time, and nobody was promising a specific outcome. That was honest, at least. She took the job. She kept the order ticket 1X ribeye, M/R. Tap water, no ice, folded in her wallet. Not framed, not displayed, just folded, the paper going soft at the creases, kept in the same place she kept the receipt from her mother's MRI. Some nights she looked at it, some nights she didn't. She was not sure she had won anything, exactly. She had done what she thought was right, and something had come from it, and Carlos still didn't know if he could stay in the country, and her mother's bill wasn't gone. And the dining room that had watched her set down her apron was still full of people who had said nothing, and she thought about them sometimes not with bitterness, but with the quiet understanding that being in that room and saying nothing was not a simple choice, and she was not sure what she would have done if the jacket had been on someone else. She was not sure that uncertainty made her a worse person. She thought maybe it made her a more honest one. That was enough to go on.